Okay. We are back.
Almost ready, Mayor. Hold on one second.
All right.
Please. Okay, now we're back. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, City Clerk Wilkins. Appreciate it. So do I have everybody back? Just by a voice. I see Councilmember Oxiger. I see Councilmember Nutting.
Yes.
I see Councilmember Buxton. Councilmember Pennington, are you back? Councilmember Harris, are you back? Councilmember Steinmetz. I see Councilmember Steinmetz is back. So we're still waiting on Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Pennington. Oh, there's Councilmember Harris. Thank you. Councilmember Pennington, are you here?
You know, in that old age, he might have lost track of time.
Surprise birthday party.
Or Jeremy forgot where he was.
There's that too. Got lost in his own house.
Tough crowd. Wow.
It's only because we love you, Vic.
All right. Councilmember Pennington's back. All right, with that, the next subject is that came up as a priority was programmings in parks and recreation. With that, who would like to open the floor to discussion? Do I have a volunteer? Okay, I'll start calling names. Councilmember Oxiger, I'll let you go first this time.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Buxton did have her hand raised. So anyway, if she
Yeah,
doesn't mind, okay.
I'll make her next. Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things I would like to see that, the cities all around us have it is establish a Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, similar to the Citizens Advisory Board. Parks and Rec, I think, is essential. It's one of the glues that sticks the community together, and we need an opportunity for the public to tell us what they want. And it's such an important role that I don't know what everybody wants. I want the public to tell me what it is they're looking for. Another aspect that I raised with that is to establish I realize it's a dirty word for some people if you mention Seattle, but Seattle has a Department of Neighborhoods that their primary goal is outreach and to encourage involvement by the neighborhoods, because when people take ownership of their neighborhoods, it goes to solving issues with public safety. It goes to fostering communication. It's just a great way for people to have ownership in this collective area we call Des Moines. So that's what I would like to see.
Thank you, Councilmember Oxiger. With that, I'll yield the floor to our Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. So just in a little bit of a response why I would not be so heartily supportive of the recommendation about the board is back to our communication process. One of the things we're looking for is to reduce reduce the work that humans need to do and replace it with technology if possible. And the communication that was completed in regard to gathering input for our parks was absolutely fabulous this last year. I've never participated in a more updated process through a phone. There was a consultant, a firm that was involved in that. It was an incredible way of reaching out to people who we would never have been able to reach under our traditional outreach processes. And it was incredibly comprehensive. And then they produced a report. So that was a great experience, I think. Okay, then the only other input I had in regard to parks and programming is to explore options for enhancing our community experience and education, as well as increasing revenue through more programming in Parks, Rec, and Senior Services, and possibly an expanded partnership with Highland School District. Now, when I completed this question in these bullets, we had not ramped up. I mean, this was several weeks ago. We hadn't ramped up our Parks and Rec services like I just saw in the occurrence that just came out, and then the report that we received, that we got from Nicole, I think it was last week. So if I would have read the city currents and heard from Nicole, I might not even, this would have been half of my request as it was. I think that we're ramping up and moving ahead in a really healthy way. So thank you to our staff for getting all that going. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Buxton. Moving on to Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't write anything down about that because I'm glad to see that we're able to get our parks department and in-person meetings up and running again. I think staff's done a great job of that. And just wanted to echo the same thing that Deputy Mayor Buxton had said. So that's all I had on that subject.
All right, moving on to Councilmember Steinmetz.
Thank you. Yeah, I think anybody that heard me during the campaign knows that this is a big issue with me. I think the city needs to continue to expand its parks and recreation services. There are a number of reasons why they shrunk from the time that my boys were involved in their services, and I understand that. But hopefully, as we start coming out of COVID, we can expand this. I think it's really important for a number of reasons. One, it creates connections primarily between different parts of the cities. Whether it's the seniors who are able to come together at the senior center, or whether it's the kids, from different parts of the cities that are joining up on the same sports teams, or whether it's the parents of the kids who are just hanging out on the sidelines and start talking to one another. This is a great way to build community. And I think it's very important that we do that. City Manager Matthias, are you wanting to comment on something I'm saying, or?
No, I wanted to comment after you brought up a really important point. So I was signaling the mayor. I apologize.
I'm sorry, I saw you waving.
I apologize, Councilmember Steinmetz. Sometimes they'll acknowledge to me that they want to interject.
These are the joys of being in a Zoom meeting.
Yes, exactly.
Who's that hand waving directed at? So, I apologize. I think that we have a number of facilities that are available to us in the community, and I'd like to maximize their use, particularly for parks and recreation. And these are long-term things that we're talking about. These are not short-term. I want to change anything for this summer. And if I gave everybody the impression of that at our last meeting, particularly with Nordholm, I apologize. That was not. But I think that they're, my assessment of the situation is that there's a lot of support in the city for now growing and expanding these kinds of services. I also think that and I know that there are some procedural issues that Councilmember Nutting has brought up, trying to get back the after-school care and daycare programs, but we got to figure out ways around that. We got to figure out ways to try to make that happen. because that was, again, just a great service that we could provide to the community. And it's important to build a lot of those relationships. I think Parks and Recreation are where people get together to have fun. They enjoy it. I think it's one of the primary things that a city can do to give back to the people in their community and to create that sense of community. So I think it's very important, and I want to do whatever can be done to try to support the growth of those services. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Steinmetz. I'll go with Councilmember Harris, then Councilmember Pennington.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just encourage all my colleagues to, again, think about Reach Out Des Moines, something as a model. I'm just struck by the fact that we have so many school children who have never been to Saltwater State Park for an activity, okay? There are just surprising logistics or paperwork or so forth. There should, I don't know exactly the conduit, but we have these, we have all of these riches, and there should be a way that everybody who goes to Pacific Middle School or any, is going to go on science field trips down to Saltwater State Park or, the Mast or, and it seems to me that the city Parks and Rec can be the vehicle that connects them together somehow. And the other thing, regarding something that Councilmember Oxiger said, I would not be opposed to such a committee, but the reason that I am so passionate about having this, new digital presence is that we have to get more of the public engaged. I am thinking of the very real possibility of standing up a committee like that and not getting anybody to show up from different parts of the city, or getting the same cast of characters that we tend to get over and over. I really want to take a shot at just getting basically people east of 16th, not to put too fine a point on it, engaged in civic life. I don't know if it's the cart and the horse or however that aphorism goes, but that's why I lead so much with the phone-based digital presence, because I've watched the Citizens Advisory Committee and other things, and man, you have to get people aware of it before they can even know to sign up, so that's the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. I'm going to go to Councilmember Pennington, and then I'll go to City Manager Mathias.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Parks and Rec is a big deal, and I know a few years ago there was always this competition between Parks and Rec and Police Department for funding. We took care of the funding piece with a revenue stream from our red light cameras that went into public safety and helped take away that constant battle or competition for revenues for programs. Like I've said before, I think it's really important that, and I'm glad to see that we're re-engaging in our family programs and youth and senior programs, and we're in a new normal, and so we have to look at the public health guidelines, we have to look at the CDC guidelines, and so we're kind of in a rebuilding. We have a really great base, and where Nicole takes that and leads that from there, will be interesting to see that. But it's a little bit different world than what it was 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So we have to keep that in mind as we demand all these different changes. There's workforce dynamics, there's logistics around around parents and working and all of that. And so there's a lot of different dynamics that I believe are now in play that weren't a few years ago. So as we move forward, I look forward to, from what I can do as a council member to support that. And I'm very pleased with what I've heard, what the report was a little while ago. Now, in terms of engagement in the community, I think I remember taking the survey a few years ago that I think that really provided some direction. So I think it goes back to what I think one of my colleagues talked about, the communication. It goes back to some of the communication pieces and how we can equitably get that across the city. Some people will engage, some won't, but if there's a way to fix that, and I think that goes back to the communication, more of a as opposed to perhaps a group of people making these decisions that may not be fairly represented of the community. And again, there's also issues with electronic communications, and is there equity in that, and folks that have access to the internet and have access to those types of things. So I think there's probably a multifaceted communication module that needs to be looked at, but that is an operations and a staff decision, and so as they look at these different things, I'm anxious to hear how they're going to manage them. So anyway, great job. Thank you very much. And that's it.
Thanks, Councilmember Pennington. I'm going to yield the floor to City Manager Mathias.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of points. So I think it's important on the positive side. There are a lot of positives, but prior to COVID, we spent over $200,000 investing in enhanced irrigation for the Fieldhouse field. And we did that specifically, that's used mostly for soccer. And soccer is the sport of many of the immigrants that have moved to Des Moines. So that was one way of us trying to enhance opportunities for diversity and responsiveness to communities of color and to new communities who've moved into the city. The other thing that we did was engaged with the Senior and Vets Levy to work a partnership with Seattle Central, I believe it's called. And this is primarily an elderly center that serves people of color, and to integrate those opportunities with our seniors. And unfortunately, COVID kind of hit right around that time, so it curtailed a number of the activities. But we're conscious of that. And we're trying to work with that, enhance diversity, to enhance equity. And also, we're really proud, and I think as a city, we can be very proud of the EATS program that kept going all through COVID to provide meals to seniors, meals on weekends, coupons, and also enhanced the ability of our restaurants to survive. Even if modest, it's still an effort toward helping that. There's one restaurant I know between the EATS program and the original CARES money got over $35,000. So those are just a couple of reminders of things that are going on. And I think Councilmember Pennington hit it right on the head. This isn't normal times. We're not back to where we were. We're not doing things we used to do. It's all new. Getting staff, difficult. Making sure people are safe, difficult. At any rate, just a couple of positives, and I think that Susan did a fantastic job of kind of shepherding parks through the dark hours that we faced. And I know Nicole has an opportunity to do some great stuff with her staff on the bright side. But at any rate, I just wanted to mention those. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. My interjection is I agree. The COVID issue has really put the brakes on the Parks and Recreation Department for the last 2 years, more than probably any other, and the impacts, unfortunately, to our children. But that's none of our faults. It's just a reality. I thought the survey that inevitably led to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan was a great way to reach out, especially during that time. And I felt it was informative. It felt like I was taking the SATs because I took it myself. And it was impressive, and I thought it was expansive and gave a good assessment of all needs. I'm very confident in Nicole. Not to tell her how to do the job, but I would encourage her and her staff to be talking to the parents. I think that the people using the program and also the seniors as well, and getting and soliciting their feedback, which I know you do already. And if something comes of that over this next year that you feel you need our support, then bring it to us and through the city manager, of course, and make some recommendations. And then if we can help in any regard, whether it's a budget approval or something like that, then I think that's the good thing. But I think that's how you get a good cross section of residents in our city who are using the programs and so forth at the various levels. And of course, their feedback from their parents. Nothing else really to say there. Do I have people that would like to have a second round? Got Councilmember Harris. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, really quick. The Des Moines City Currents, it is wonderful. Love it. Okay. And I cannot read it, the digital version. People with visual disabilities, because the way that it's set up, it's basically a book of 16 big images. So my little gizmo that reads the text to me can't read it. And neither can somebody who speaks Vietnamese or Spanish or Arabic. Okay. So my suggestion would be basically for parks and for seniors, we got to think of it in terms of people who have disabilities and who have problems with computer illiteracy, and there are a surprising number of us. And you don't have to go hog wild, but I've noticed that just Spanish and Vietnamese, I think we should have our materials available in at least those formats. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Seeing nobody, I think what we've done is at least given staff an idea. Nicole, take it away. We were very confident in what you're going to do, and we're really excited for now that things are opening up to see what you can do to add on to the great work Susan Cesar has already done. All right, moving on to the next subject. We're going to talk about business and development as the next conversation. Councilmember Nutting, you are first.
Thank you, Mayor. I think my name got left off because I was a little unclear on two of my bullet points, but I'll make it really quick, like always. For business and development, encourage and facilitate the economic growth in the downtown corridor, the Pack Highway, and the Rosa's Diner location, which we all know a little bit of the history behind that, and nothing's taken off. And I know that some of this is coming to Economic Development Committee, especially the Pack Highway, how we can get some of those parcels taken care of. But just to, again, to see how we can help get some development spurred downtown and south, in the Redondo area. There's a couple properties down there. And then I've had several calls over the last year or so, and there just seems to be disconnect in the building and planning department with challenges from contractors or developers, and just to see where that's at and how we can facilitate, right? Because we got to help these guys get to yes, and instead of slowing them up. So those are my two my two ideas for the business and development. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Do you have somebody else? Okay, Councilmember Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This again was, what did I have? It ended up being third on my list, but because I was just making a list, not because it's necessarily a lower priority than some of the other things. I do think that it's very important that we start to really focus on downtown as a whole. I think we have brought some individual projects in there. But at this point, I'd like to see more sort of comprehensive planning on what we can do to make downtown more attractive to businesses moving in. And I think that involves everything from considering the traffic patterns and trying to develop 7th to, do we want a comprehensive look and feel to downtown so that everybody thinks of Des Moines as the place that looks like this, whatever this is. And I think that, right now it's kind of tough. We have some landlords that are holding out and waiting for everything to get more expensive, and we can't quite move them off the dime and get somebody in there that wants to redevelop that property. But I think that I'm really looking to see how we can comprehensively look at the picture to make it more attractive and to generate people to move in, purchase some of those properties and start that redevelopment process. There are some, the theaters just starting to go, and hopefully that's going to drive some business down in the south end of downtown. But, I don't know that it's going to solve a lot of the vacant lots that still exist. I think people are holding on to those far too long. And maybe one of the things, and I hate to be sort of punitive about vacant lots, but, do we need to consider enacting a comprehensive, keep it clean, keep it fenced? What does that mean to look at? So we've got some code enforcement teeth that we can put into at least keeping the lots looking nice and not getting overgrown with weeds or graffiti or things like that. I would really like to see a look at how do we go about getting downtown developed. And I think there's a tremendous amount of support for that. And again, I'm not trying to be proscriptive and tell the city what to do. I want the city to come back with a plan that we can all support to do that. I think that's an important piece of, because it is a priority for almost everybody I know. Now, the second piece is up on Pack Highway. The more the Pack Highway develops into, a bigger economic engine, the better off we're all going to be. It'll help with safety. It'll help with tax revenue. It'll help with a lot of things. And that gets back to some of the other discussions that we've had about Pack Highway, but it's an area that needs to be looked into and figure out, okay, how do we bring the various pieces together to make Pack Highway a more exciting place for businesses to come into? There are some nice buildings up there that are sitting empty or at least under occupied. And I think we need to continue pushing to do that. And again, we just need the comprehensive planning to do that. So that's
Thank you, Councilmember Steinmetz. Moving on to Councilmember Harris. You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I believe the deputy mayor was before me, but
Yeah, I recognized you and I saw her too.
Fair
So
enough, fair enough. Just never want people to feel. So yeah, very quickly, annexation. It's just you have to control that in order to. My concern is that people are going to get off that train and make a right and never be heard from again, or it will be considered like sort of a siege kind of a thing, rather than something that becomes an integrated hub. But it's the challenge, and it really needs to be thought about, like, I don't know, yesterday. But on a practical level, I don't think it would be the worst idea in the world for us to have, and I said so at the ARPA thing, to have a business coach. Because funny enough, we have a coach that we offer to our staff. And if you look in the time I've lived here, we have a surprising number of ribbon cuttings, and they're all very exciting, but the businesses fail. Many restaurant owners, I was one of them, are put out a fabulous product, but they are not exactly rocket surgeons. They just put in 16 hours a day making great food, and the restaurateurs that survive have mentors, and you can pay them, and they will be the difference between someone who sticks around for 3 years and someone who persists. I am not of the opinion that one needs to build fabulous new structures. You look at Columbia City, and it was kind of a dump, but you put good products there. That 8 Dive Shop thing. Okay, it has a great product. You look at Hampton and Creole Soul, you have a good product, and you just teach people how to manage a little bit, and then they stick for more than 3-4 years, and then you can put up the nice new structures, and it's cheap. It's cheap to hire a mentor and help a business succeed. It's worth a shot. Thank you. Oh yeah. As opposed to like Cape Cod on Marine View Drive. Okay, I mean, we tried that, and yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Moving on to Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to respond to Councilmember Harris's suggestion, excellent suggestion. Actually, we already do something like that. And I think, so first I'll describe it. We participate with the college in a partnership, a few other cities do as well, with the Small Business Development Center up there, which offers free business coaching, they offer a whole broad array of services to help small businesses succeed, and it's free of charge. It's a federally funded, though we participate in helping to fund that, and we also partner with the college and SBDC through another partnership that we have with our local cities, the Soundside Alliance for Economic Development. And the SBDC partners with us in that. So we get the SBDC gets a broad view of the economic strengths and weaknesses in our 5 South cities here, and opportunities, as well as, helping people to do everything from locate in a great place. It's an incredible service, and it's free. So I think maybe the weakness is possibly marketing if not enough people know about it. So I just wanted to compliment you on the suggestion, and there's been a lot of effort already to do that. In regard to economic development, I am with my colleagues already have mentioned exploring code options that 2 things: enhance compliance or a facelift to our downtown corridor, as well as code options that can help to upgrade Pacific Ridge, Pacific Highway properties or opportunities to draw investors and developers up there. So just an exploration exercise. Also, enhance our support and admin if it's needed to Michael to facilitate networking and outreach where needed, in the same way that, he hasn't expressed any needs, but if he does, if he's feeling a little overwhelmed, like many of the staff can in the different, in their different areas, I would be willing to support some help there. So if we feel like we need that. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Buxton. I'll turn it over to City Manager Matthias, then I'll go next.
Yeah, there's a lot of different points to this. And I think what we need to do is schedule at some point with the council some undivided time as to economic development in the city of Des Moines. And I think one of the things that's interesting to me is essentially we're talking about retail development in the downtown. But right at the outskirts up 24th and 216th, we have over 2.5 million square feet of new industrial, office, distribution facility, about 120 acres employed in that use with some of the top-notch companies you'll find anywhere: Bartels, Outdoor Research, the FAA, AmerisourceBergen, largest pharmaceutical distributor in the United States, right? Green Corps. There's just it's an endless K2 skis. And that's a great thing to build on. And I'd like to talk with council about that, because what's going to change the downtown are a couple of things. If you relax residential requirements relative to heights and density, then you can increase demand. If you create a tourist destination, for example, marina redevelopment and the marina steps, and create access, you're going to increase demand. We have very significant landholders here who want to play in the marina redevelopment right down adjacent to the marina. But when that project moves forward and people see that's for real, and we do the ferry service and we do the steps and we get private development occurring, that's going to increase demand, attraction as a destination. And I would really enjoy the opportunity to walk through all of that, because, suggestions that the public sector knows how to make the private sector successful, I'm sorry, those are laughable. We're not good at that. We're good at running governments. We're not good at running businesses. That's what the private sector is there for. And Councilmember or Deputy Mayor Buxton, tremendous comment. Yeah, Small Business Development Center at Highline is a great resource for people starting out. We're interested in looking at food trucks and having a consultant help us that we get the zoning right and the right-of-ways right and the access right and all of that, because food trucks that are successful can then move into brick and mortar locations. And that's a normal evolution that occurs. It's happened a lot in Bellevue. So at any rate, I'd love to go into that in depth, because it's not just to snap your fingers, this is how we create development. It's a very long process. And ultimately, what's going to determine development in the city of Des Moines is going to be the private sector deciding it's a great place to invest, and what they can get as a return is better than what the properties are now generating, so they can offer whatever premium, buy the properties and redevelop them. That's a slow process. It takes years and years for cities to turn around, and we have a great catalyst with the marina. And I'll just stop there, but at some point, maybe we could schedule some time with council to go into that a little more.
Thank you, City Manager Matthias. I have a few comments. I agree. I was actually going to bring up the business park and maximizing that. The opportunity, I think the code and zoning, could we look at that? Could we do things to inspire growth? I agree with you 100%. The marina is pivotal to the downtown. It's the amenities. We do the things we can do. We set the table, and then we bring the people to eat. My thing is that I think we're in that position right now where we're starting to say, hey, we're open for business. Come develop here. Come put your business here. I want to find a way to advertise that. I know in the investment and development circle, I think it's getting around, and I'm excited about the opportunity, but can we do that better? And how do we take the next step to encourage businesses, whether they leave other towns and come to us or expand or open up here? I think the look and feel thing is great. We had those great public events for the marina, and they put dots on the imagery and the look and feel they wanted the marina to look like. I think those are transferable, especially to our downtown. Our Pack Highway with the light rail is going to develop. I've seen Columbia City or Othello, because I used to ride the light rail every day, and I watched it grow over the time, and it was fabulous. And you're going to see that go up there. Maybe there's some work and partnership we can have with Ken and Federal Way on those light rail stations and things like that, and what could be there to complement each other. I want a place that if we have the ability to refer businesses and developers, should we come across them, mostly in many cases where I've come across them, I've referred them to you, and it's been a very successful formula. Maybe we just formalize that. But I am excited for what we are, but I want to be ready for it in any way, shape, or form we can to make them want to come here, be satisfied, and be successful. All right, I think before I go to you, Councilmember Harris, I want to make sure, yeah, Councilmember Pennington and Oxiger get a first chance. So I'm going to go with Councilmember Pennington.
Okay, thank you. A lot of what I wanted to say, my colleagues have reflected. But one thing I would like to point out, and you know, with our city manager, he was hired as the before he was a city manager, he was hired as the economic development director. His history in that is second to none, and the relationships that he has built with different folks over the years is the reason that Des Moines is now on the map relative to the high-end developers. And I won't mention their names because I think they want some anonymity, but the reason is there, and then his staff and the staff that he brought to the city. And you know, so we owe a lot to our staff. We owe a lot to our thanks to our city manager. And I'm not, you know, trying to blow smoke. I'm just telling you the way it is. I mean, he's a well-known commodity, and we are very fortunate and very blessed to have him here doing the level of work he's doing. Without that, you would still be back on a lot of the lower end development and folks that would want to come and help develop the marina. Well, that didn't work, you know, and so we're fortunate. I think that to his point, you know, to have council, and maybe we do this in a work session, or maybe we do some tours to reiterate the what's going on in the city. I think that might be time for kind of an update like that. But there's a lot of stuff and a lot of underneath work and a lot of relationships, and I think we've seen some of those this evening with our presentations that we probably wouldn't have had access to, at least as easy as what we have. And so thank you to the city manager. Thank you to the staff. The continued development is important. If we want to do some sort of a theme downtown, that's been tried back in a long time ago, and I think a couple of different times. And the problem is the businesses, you know, couldn't afford to make some changes and retrofitting, you know, their facades and that. And so I don't know, you know, what the answer is to that. I do like the old feel, you know, kind of like Councilmember Harris was talking about in Columbia City. I think there's a blend there, and there's kind of a mix that will work well. But again, thank you to the staff, and thank you for what you've brought here with us, and it's just been an absolute joy to see the change. And really now we've passed those different crossroads, and we're not on the home stretch, but man, we are so fortunate to be going down with the development of the marina and everything associated with that. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Oxiger, would you like an opportunity to share?
Sure. I just want to say that the city manager, I think, made a very forceful argument for why we need citizen advisory committees, both whether it be for the parks or whether it be for development of the land side with regard to the marina and its effect on the marina district. We're not experts in a lot of this area. One of the things that impresses me the most about this city is the amount of expertise we do have in the city that we're not tapping. And it's people that are maybe in businesses other places, or, you know, their jobs in general. They would be a great a source of a wealth of information that we could use. And so, yeah, let's take advantage of the expertise that we have here in the community to help us and guide us, because not everybody's on the council, and not everybody on the council is fluent in all of these areas that we need to be developing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Oxiger. All right, going back to Councilmember Harris for your second pass.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. So regarding the coaching thing, yeah, you need somebody who goes to the restaurant owner. They're working 16 hours a day. They're not going to go to, the mentor has to go to them. It's a little thing, but it really matters. As far as look and feel, I have, people think it's apparently not a big deal, but we should have a consistent branding between the marina and the Redondo, okay, fishing pier and all of those amenities. It matters that the city has branding and that it's consistent, okay? And let's see here. I have been trying for a while. For some reason, other cities are able to provide management reports that break down economic development by zone. And I have been told by our finance department that there are some problems of legality, that she collects that information from the taxing authorities, but it is, you can't get it. But I really want to be able to tease out the income that the city is deriving from each geographical district, so we can understand the efficiencies. Where do we put our energy? Last, I just want to say that building is not economic development. It's easy to conflate the two. Building, love it, great idea, but whatever you build there, 3 years later, the unions love it and the developers love it, and we get the one-time money, but then you got to live with it for 25 years. So just, make sure it's something that will pay and that people like 10 years from now. And so I'm more on I don't care if it's a funky building, as long as there's something that people really like on the inside. And that's whether it's at 216th or in Redondo or North Hill. We should find ways to bring things here that people want to buy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. So in closing here, unless somebody wants a second round to speak, I'm getting the assessment. I really like city manager's suggestion that we have a later follow-up of this study session on economic development. Possibly we could invite a few of our business owners to join us for that discussion. Would council support something like that? Okay, looks like we have a consensus there, so we're going to have staff take that away. And then now we're going to be moving on to some of the more individual priorities. And basically what I'd like to do here is I'll start with the individual that puts it up, and then I'll allow other people to ask and inquire about. So with that being said, I'm going to, Councilmember Harris, I'd like you to talk about your research process.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's in the email that each of you received. It's a simple, a lot of cities have it. CTAC has language built into their rules of procedure, and it just drops in. And essentially, it is very much like a public records request in that the council member submits a request for information, and if it and the city comes back and says this will take X amount of time for us to give you your answer. If it's under an hour, the city automatically has to provide that within 5 days or what have you. And if not, it comes back with an estimate, and then a committee or the full council votes to allocate the time to put in that research. And it's like a public records request in that the answers are stored in a database so that all future council members can refer back to it, a bit like MRSC. So this would create a knowledge base that our successors will be able to take advantage of, not just for the answers, but to give a sense of what the thinking was. Okay. We now take action minutes, and you really don't get a sense of what happened. You would have to just go through watching hundreds of hours of video and so on, to try to understand how we got to this point on an issue. I think these requests would, help me in the now, but it would also help the future. And like I say, it's a drop-in thing. There's language in many, many cities to make this happen. And it shouldn't be onerous for the administration because, they can look at it and they can just, evaluate if it's going to be a big deal or not. Thank you.
Is there any council members wish to comment on this? Well, I'll start. I'm not for this. I know, in particular, Councilmember Harris, you've made almost essentially thousands of requests that would have been very time consuming and costly to staff when all of us do that on our own. I think it's a poor use of staff. It's a poor use of dollars at this juncture. I think things are accessible. I think you work through the system as it works today. Now, I'm not going to poo-poo the deal. If you want to try to propose it in council rules in an upcoming meeting in probably the second half of the year, you could do so. But to me, it doesn't make sense. And I think our staff have better things to do, quite frankly. Deputy Mayor Buxton.
I think that this sounds like a good idea if you have the resources and if it's not abused. I know we have one sister city there. They have it's a huge city though, with a ton of resource, and they have a person allocated to the council to do that. But that person has to put down boundaries and gets abused. So, for the amount of resource that we have and allocation, not only it's going to take 15 to 30 minutes to make a decision as to whether, for some of these things, as to how long it's going to take to answer the question. I mean, there's time in just assessing how much time it's going to take. And Councilmember Harris, you have asked a lot of questions, and I think that you're a smart guy with a lot of time, and you have a lot of resource in your mind and heart. I think that you can find out a lot of this stuff on your own and develop a relationship. And, I think our staff has been reasonable. I wouldn't think to ask for something like this because I don't have a challenge getting the information that I need in a timely manner, or if it's applicable to what I need to discover. But even your question just a moment ago, I think sometimes there's a tendency, because of your hunger for understanding, to get into situations or want to know something that's not really your responsibility as a council member. It would be if you were in administration, or if you were the city manager, or if you were the police chief, or if you were a sergeant. But you're unendingly curious, which is a good quality. But to ask the staff to satisfy that, I think it's unreasonable. You have a lot of resources at your fingertips. I think most of this information you can find. I know you're kind of frustrated, but even like I said, the question that you had a moment ago, it's not under the parameter of your job as a council member, even though you might really like to know that information, what you would do with it would not be inside of the job description here at the dais. And so I'm of the opinion that a lot of the requests will be kind of like that. And it would be, anyway, I'm not in favor of this. I'm doing fine without this process. So thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Seeing nobody, Councilmember Harris, do you want one more time on the floor on this issue? You're on mute, sir.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, just, a lot, Deputy Mayor Buxton, the thing about the zone, if that's what you're talking about, I just watched what Becky Erickson does in Polsboro, okay? That's one way that they monitor their, sales and growth, and, I didn't make it up, it just, I saw her doing it, so that's it, thank you.
All right. Moving on to the next item. It's also Councilmember Harris with committee and meeting modernizations. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I've already covered, a good deal of it. We should have a marina committee, but as to the process, I would like to make sure that we continue with Zoom. I shouldn't say continue, but have hybrid meetings for both full council and the committee meetings for the future. I think the Zoom thing has been good, but you have to afford people both. And I think if I could do nothing else accomplished, that would be really, really good to make sure that that's going to be the case.
Okay.
That's it.
Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I would not be in favor of hybrid.
Deputy Mayor Buxton, you muted yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would not be in favor of hybrid meetings, and this is why. I think we need to do one or the other. I'm on the growth management planning board for PSRC, and I know PSRC has spent tens of thousands of dollars to try and create the hybrid experience, and it's been very frustrating. King County Council has spent over $100,000 in trying to create the hybrid experience with just frustrating troubles. So with a city our size and the capacity we have and the resource we have, I just feel like to create that hybrid experience, it's not worth the expenditure of resource. I think we just need to pick one or the other. That's my very strong opinion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Buxton. I would agree. I think it's one or the other. There was a rumor out on social media that said we desired to have Zoom meetings for eternity or whatever, and that's completely untrue. The fact is that this is a type of meeting that should be held at the dais. We look at the restrictions we have today, where, like Councilmember Oxiger talks about, we need that interaction and so forth. But this format, quite honestly, doesn't really contribute to that. And the sooner we're back, the better. But of course, we're not going to do it unless it's safe to do so. And we're going to follow the governor's direction as said. But I think I don't like the hybrid idea. I think we're there. We want to be found accountable. We want the public to come in, be able to say what they say in the format this meeting was designed to be. That's what I have. Before I call back on you, sir, I just want to make sure that any other council member has a point. Do any other council members have any kind of response? Okay, Councilmember Steinmetz, go ahead.
Yeah, in my other life, I conduct hearings in a courtroom setting. And we have gone completely to Zoom and telephone. And I can tell you that to try to add live into that really would be unwieldy. It's just, you don't have, who's ever conducting that hearing would really have a hard time trying to keep everybody being taken care of. As Mayor Buxton points out, there are some real technology issues Deputy Mayor Buxton.
She just got promoted. Go ahead.
Anyway, I can tell you from at least a practical standpoint that trying to do that, I think, really, really would be onerous. Now, I do like the idea that people have access to the meeting. I think more transparency, more access to show up. So if we wanted to continue broadcasting, essentially, there might be some room to consider that. But to have the people who are on Zoom watching the meeting actively try to participate in the meeting, I think it gets really, really unwieldy and very, very difficult to do. So I don't think that would necessarily be a plus for the way we conduct meetings now.
I would add, we always broadcast live to finish that Councilmember Steinmetz comments. So anybody else before Mr. Harris gets his response? Seeing none, Mr. Harris, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So first of all, my even greater concern is that the meetings continue to be recorded because frankly, the participation in the committee meetings, especially, you go back to in real life and people will not even know that they are happening. And yeah, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that really works for most people. And I'll just run down the list of the airport should be part of the Environment Committee. For the public, the Environment Committee is actually the Stormwater Utility Committee, but it should include all of the airport stuff. We used to have a planning commission. That should be restored again because the public should have a voice in zoning. And we should have a finance and admin committee. This idea of, a great majority of the stuff that we do is not building capital projects. It's going to be the website, it's going to be accounting, and it's going to be in the digital realm. And there should be a committee that is commensurate with its importance to the community. And finally, there should be a cultural advisory committee because basically if we want to get serious about reaching out to the languages and diversity of our community, we should have a public venue where they can give us the direction we need to make this city more inclusive. And that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. I'll say something. I read a book once called Death by Meeting. Overduplication, paralysis by analysis. Honestly, that's where I see this going. It's duplication. We're trying to do the job of the city staff and who we hired to do it. This is our form of government here. And what you're proposing is basically just changing the whole thing. And that's not what it is. What we are is in accordance to RCWs and the way we run the business. What you want to do is do somebody else's job in that particular case. And I just don't agree with you. Now, as far as the cultural and diversity group, maybe possibly down the road would be a great one to add. I could see it with the seniors and the human services as something that to get to plug people in. But that's something I think is something that needs to be considered, but not today, maybe in the future. Anyway, but yeah, in general, all I think what's happening is duplication to what we already do. Anybody else have a comment? Okay. with that being said, I think we've done that. And then you also had process improvements. Councilmember Harris? It was-
No, I really did not. Somebody else curated this and created the categories. We can move on to Councilmember Steinmetz.
Well, you also had another one called structural changes as
Well,
well.
yeah, the committees, I didn't create that. I'm
Okay,
telling you
okay,
that-
I'm just trying to clarify, you know.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll move on to Councilmember Steinmetz had conflict of interest.
Yeah, I think we need to address a number of conflict of interests. And, my friend council member Oxinger, I think that, you have a walking conflict. When you come in here, you use the dais to present a point of view from the organization that you're the president of. And, I don't think that's appropriate. I think that we need to be aware of not only potential conflicts, but actual conflicts on this council. And I'm learning more and more all the time about it. I just had a situation where, I was asked if I could attend a meeting for one of the candidates for King County prosecutor. And then I found out through work that the King County has its own, represents basically the county in workers' compensation claims. If I were to go make a donation or attend an event in support of somebody that's running for King County prosecutor, that's a conflict of interest for me. And I think there are a lot of sort of subtle nuances that people just aren't getting, and we need to be clear about it. Now, there are going to be people that will say, I don't care if it's a conflict, or I don't believe it's a conflict, and just simply stay there. And I think that the council then should have the ability to recuse that individual if they don't recuse themselves by a majority vote. I think that solves a lot of these particular problems for that, for those conflicts of interest. The second thing is, a few years back, there was a former councilman that left and was given a consulting contract almost immediately. And I don't think that's a good idea at all. I think that creates, some real questions about that. I think we need to come up with an ordinance that is enforceable, that simply we can no longer, give somebody who's leaving the council a job with the city, whether it's a consulting contract or whether it's a position with the city. I think that's a huge conflict of interest, and I'd like to see that potential process done away with. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Steinmetz. I have Councilmember Oxinger, Deputy Mayor Buxton, and Councilmember Harris.
I'm confused as what organization you think that I'm president of that is causing a conflict of interest and that I've represented them from the dais. But, if,
Well,
Mr. Mayor, I'd, like to know what Councilmember Steinmetz is referring to.
well, I could probably answer that for him. I think he thinks you're still the president of Legacy. You've told me you're not, but your website still says you are.
I can't control what our website says, but I am not the president of the Legacy Foundation.
Okay.
But even then, I don't know what the reference was as far as representing Legacy here, other than to say that I was recusing myself when you were going into executive session.
And I would add to that there was a time before those two times where you actually from the dais were taking the position of Legacy in a conversation. It was in a past meeting about a month ago, I believe. So I've agreed it's the same with your pool board representation, representing the pool from the city dais as well. So I think what council member, and I'm going to go next, I think what council member Steinmetz is really after here is that we definitely need council rules that that cover conflict of interest or the potential of conflict of interest that our council has to abide by. So I'm going to give the floor back to you.
To me?
Yes, I think
Oh.
we're trying to answer some questions and give clarity.
Okay, they're, you know,
Presiding officer's privilege.
okay. You know, I do happen to serve on the board of the Legacy Foundation. I am not an officer at this point. And as far as the pool district, there has been no determination that there's a conflict of interest there. That's something that would have to come through either the Attorney General's office or a ruling by the court. And I don't know of any instance that there has been any, you know, evidence of incompatibility. It would have to be something coming before the city, and I can't remember in the whole course of the history of the pool board that there really has been, you know, a question that would come up. We're doing something that the city declined to do, which is operate a pool.
All right. I'm going to move on to Councilmember Buxton, or Deputy Mayor Buxton. And I saw you, Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. So I believe that I also believe this has been kind of an issue in our town, probably for decades, actually. And so I think you mentioned, Mayor, that this would be a good thing to attend to in our council rules. So I'm going to recommend that. I think we are going to be discussing those at length and modifications or amendments to council rules. And I believe this will be one of the, or could be, let's just write it down and say this will be one of the items that is in the discussion as to what we as a council, 7 of us, feel about conflicts of interest or even the appearance of it in our city with outside organizations once you become a council member, because I'm sure we've got a feeling about it, even reaching to family members or spouses, and how that looks out into the community. So, and we can have an animated discussion at the time. I think that would be probably a good idea. Come up with some kind of draft ideas and have a discussion and see how we feel about that and incorporate that into our council rules. That's my recommendation.
Moving on to Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. So let's see here. What apart from any rules, what I try to tell people is, if you're a member of the city council and that's not enough public service for you during the week, you're not trying. Apart from any hard and fast rules, I would be open to that kind of discussion as to what other boards, organizations one might be a member of whilst serving. I definitely think that once one leaves elected office, there should be a cooling off period before going to work for, it doesn't need saying. But there's a more subtle thing, you see, and this is going to hurt some feelings, but hey, it's me, right? I love Joe Dusenberry. Love you to death, man. But it's a funny thing that when I go to a DMMA meeting, okay, I am talking to somebody who is a contractor and one of the real brains behind any number of large projects at the marina. And also, he is representing the interests of a special interest group. He has a point of view. He's being paid by the city and he has a point of view over here. And I'm this elected in the middle, okay? And it's awkward. Okay? And we have a surprising number of those complex relationships between ex-employees, spouses, and the thing about it is something that I refer to as professional distance, okay? I find a great deal of defensiveness amongst the staff and and it causes tension. The city manager, everybody thinks I'm picking on them. I'm not. I'm here to represent the voters, okay? I'm supposed to give you guys a hard time. I'm not supposed to be your friend, okay? I'm supposed to represent the angry horde, and if I'm uncomfortable, the idea of being a judge is that you are, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're up on the dais to literally have distance from the people that you have to evaluate. And we make it really tough to have that professional distance here. It's a muscle that has atrophied. We made these relationships a plus, okay, in order to make the city thrive, but we've outgrown it. And there needs to be some way to be able to speak more candidly without people feeling picked on or, and anytime you have these complex relationships, it makes it more difficult. That's been my challenge because I'm never trying to give people a hard time. I'm just trying to find out what's going on. So yeah, that's my angst for the evening. Thank you.
Does anyone else, Councilmember Pennington?
I don't know. I spent 47 years in public service, and you have to walk a very, very thin line between your personal life and your public professional life. And and that means, when you're a public servant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of where you're at. If you're at the grocery store, if you're at the drive-in, at your church or synagogue, or wherever you're at. And when you speak with authority, and that's the gospel. So you have to be careful. And the other things that you do and associate yourself with, you have to think about. And Councilmember Harris, I take issue with, I'm up on the dais because I'm supposed to be superior to everybody else. And I will tell you, from somebody who has led people in the worst scenarios that I hope nobody else ever has to, I have never had to put myself elevated. There is a level of respect for the hierarchy of command. And to berate and believe you have to berate and hold staff accountable that way, there is no wonder that no one will follow you in this city. And you can't get things that you want. If that's the attitude, then you need to take some leadership courses, because that went away, that autocratic attitude went away a long time ago. That's not how you deal with people. You show them some respect, you show leadership, you mentor and you guide, and they will follow, and you don't place blame on them. If something's screwed up, step up take responsibility and learn from it and move forward. So the thought that if I could be down on the same level as everybody else, if I could remodel that council chambers, I would. And I can tell you from my years of experience that leading people and I have lived through the old time fire chiefs and command staff where it was very autocratic, and by God, you better do it because I'm superior to you and I have a higher rank. Doesn't work that way. It works that way in the heat of battle, and you, because you respect the chain of command, but you also have to respect that there are other peoples, and other people should be empowered to be able, and I'm talking about staff, to be able to say, this is how it works best, because they're the ones that do the work.
Point of order,
So-
Mayor. I have had enough of this personal
But-
nonsense.
All right.
I'm responding to
Councilmember Harris, yes.
statements
This
He's
is a
responding to your
how he
statement.
felt he needed to
This
be
is a
But-
personal
with our
lecture,
staff.
okay?
Hold on. I will say this. I think the consensus here is that a conflict of interest is a discussion we have at a future council rules meeting. Would everybody agree?
You bet.
That being said, we'll move on to the next item.
Wait.
So the next item is from Councilmember Pennington. You had Sustainable Airport Master Plan as one of your items.
Yes, I think it's important that we have the relationship and we continue to be engaged in the SAMP, and that so that we're in a good position to be able to review and comment on the SAMP. And I would add whether we probably won't get it here because I don't know that staff's prepared, but I would like council to have an update on what's going on there and where we're at with that particular project. But again, my point is to continue to stay engaged at a high level so that we can position ourselves to always be able to review and comment on that. That's it.
City Manager Matthias, did you have something to say before I go to the council?
No, that's fine. I mean, yeah, I appreciate Councilmember Pennington putting that on the list. It's an important issue for the city going forward. As we've stated before and often, this is the only opportunity we're going to have with legal standing to comment on the potential environmental impacts that would affect the city. So we have consultants that we've stayed in touch with that are still involved, that we contracted with with Burien, Normandy Park, and CTAC and ourselves to comment on the environmental documents. The process will be that first there will be the NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act through the federal government, which is administered by the FAA. So the likelihood of, commenting effectively to the FAA, I think, is a question, but they also have to go through SEPA, and that's Department of Ecology in the state of Washington, which gives us a much stronger, I think, opportunity to comment on the SAMP. And I'll just tell you, the issue we have is that they're implementing near-term projects, and the whole point of the environmental review is to look at cumulative effects, and they're not doing that. So that would be our first complaint procedurally, aside from the specific environmental impacts. And we will bring those to council as we know more. They've kept delaying this, and they've got issues with the FAA, and they had issues earlier with modeling, the acceptability of their modeling for the FAA. So we will keep you in the loop on that, and really appreciate you, Councilmember Pennington, for bringing that up because it's important for our city. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinmetz.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly support keeping the SAMP sort of much more front and center so that we're pushing that issue exactly as the council manager said. I think we need to take advantage of the fact that we can make a record even if the FAA is maybe not inclined to accept that particular feedback, but also getting that in front of the Department of Ecology is good. I'd also like to add to that is that there was a siting committee that had been formed for a second airport. I'd like to know what's going on with that and where that's at. So if there is a time to sort of carve out something during a meeting to catch us up on both of those, I would really appreciate if we can make some time to do that.
Councilmember Steinmetz, appreciate that. Mayor, if I may. So we've been watching very carefully the work of the Siding with Second Airport Committee. We have Anthony Hempstead, our legislative advocate, attends those meetings. We've been briefed by both Tina Orwell and Karen Kaiser. And I've spent hours on the phone or in person doing a tour and talking with Josh Brown at PSRC about what the future of this process will look like. So I don't know definitively where they are, but we have been in touch with some of the primary people involved, and we will update council absolutely on that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Buxton, you are next.
I just wanted to agree with my colleagues. I would love an update in the near future. I'd love to hear the results of a conversation with Josh Brown, Tina, Karen, all of that. It's really nice to be able to have the latest anytime we can. So thank you, Michael. I appreciate the offer.
Any other council members wish to speak on this issue? Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, just really quick, I believe the Transportation Committee is going to convene soon. Of a related note, the WashDOT has prepared a really snazzy video flyover of the stage two of SR 509. And that is just a key component of the SAMP, and it will really change the, it's a game changer for Des Moines, and the video apparently is ready. And so I would encourage the committee to invite WashDOT. They're waiting for your call. And that will give you a sense of what air traffic and cargo trucks and so forth are going to be through that corridor, Des Moines Memorial Drive, 200th, and so on, coming in 2027. That's it.
Actually, Councilmember Harris, the staff and myself have been in contact with WashDOT, and we are actually planning a video to come, I believe, in May. Our city clerk is trying to coordinate the time. So just so you know, we're taking care of that. I agree. Keep giving us updates. Again, I'd love to hear more about the second airport. We could probably have that as a subject to talk about. The last item on the agenda, and we're at 8:56, and I think we've kind of talked about this, Councilmember Pennington, this was yours, multimodal transportation.
Right, we talked about that. I think we had a good conversation with that relative to the marina and the water taxi. So I don't have any other comments on that.
Okay, does anybody else wish to say a few words on this subject? Okay, seeing that, so that was the list of our discussion points, and we're at the just shy of the 4-hour mark. So I would like to see if we have a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Nutting, do I have a second? Councilmember Steinmetz? So the next meeting will be a regular city council meeting on April 14th at 5 p.m. for a regular city council. It will be a regular city council meeting. All those in favor of adjourning, raise your right hand. Seeing 7 votes, it passes.